fans. You are listening to the Purple People podcast. It is Adam Carlson. How are you, Adam?
I wasn't quite in the mood to record this week because I've been having, a little
You've
bit
been
of
having
ups
some
and
car
downs
problems,
mentally
and
and,
yeah,
just struggling a bit. But hopefully talking a little bit of football can get my mind off all that and, make me feel a little bit better about at least Minnesota Vikings football.
right. Because it's always a blast to talk about Vikings football, even though it's only preseason. I
There was
am
a lot to
Kyle.
like.
Yes, I am Kyle West, and look what I busted out for this week's episode. I got the Vikings gloves on.
Boom.
Yeah, I can catch some passes like Adam Thielen.
I was
I
having a
cannot.
spirited debate on Twitter today about Devontae Adams versus Adam Thielen. And it's a fun argument because there are really compelling reasons why both are really good. And fantasy-wise, sure, there might be some favorites, and that's fine. But to compare the bulk of their careers is weird, too. It's just one of those things where no player wants to admit that someone else on a rival team is better.
Right. For my money, it's hard pressed to find a better all round receiver than Adam Thielen. I think. Skull to Alan Adkins, who was with us in the chat room. Thank you for joining us on this late. What are we at? Is it Thursday? I think it's Thursday. Still.
I have no idea what day of the week it is. I guess it depends on what time zone you're in right now. So,
yeah, right. We are at episode number 358, Adam.
It gets more ridiculous every time we say it because we're not one of those shows that does 4 or 5 broadcasts a week. This is 358 weeks.
We're once a week.
And not always great weeks either. I mean, we've missed a couple here or there, but not very many.
We really wanted to get this one done because, it's preseason football. The regular season is right around the corner. So we both wanted to chat about this. Sinking the Seahawks is the name of this week's episode because, the Vikings played the Seattle Seahawks in week 2 of the preseason. This was also the home opener for the Vikings for the preseason, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that's the first time the Vikings got to play in US Bank Stadium. I believe first time they played on the new turf that they just had replaced too, correct?
That's true too. They're trying to wear down that turf a little bit and get it ready for the season because we saw some issues too in other preseason games this year of new turf being slippery because of the coating that goes on it. And once you can wear that off, it gets a lot better for football play.
I also just wanted you to know I can see the Golden Girls in the background on your mirror.
I told you, man, I got the Golden Girls on.
We're the only podcast where you're going to get Minnesota Vikings football and a little bit of reflection of the Golden Girls from
Got Rose Nyland on the couch back there.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Awesome. I had heard a rumor that Dalvin Cook didn't play because the Vikings didn't potentially want him to get hurt on the new turf. Do you know if there was any truth to that, or is that just Twitter bullshit?
I have absolutely no idea. I'm actually fine with him sitting out the entire preseason. I know that that's not really a popular thing to say because he is still a relatively young player and he could use some time out there and even to get up to game speed. I get that. But every time Dalvin Cook's on the football field, I get a little bit scared because I don't know if he can last a whole season. And if they can hold him out some reps, keep him healthy, I think that might be the best thing to do.
I agree with you 100%. I don't know if there's any truth to the whole turf argument. I don't know. That could just be Twitter bullshit. But, yeah, I would rather have a healthy Dalvin Cook when we're making a push to the playoffs later on in the season, as opposed to arbitrarily week 2 of the preseason. We got some other running backs that I would rather see on the field and see what we have beneath them. Let's keep Dalvin healthy and ready to go for regular season time.
I like getting Madison some experience against the first team. That's nice.
Yep.
I like seeing a little bit more of the Boone and Abdullah situation going on because I honestly am not 100% sure what's going to happen there. There's a lot of cool camp battles or position battles going on right now that it's going to be really tough for coaches. Really tough. They're going to have to decide which positions have more value, who can be a better special teamer and everything. this is going to be one of the tougher cuts I've ever seen, especially when it comes to running back and defensive end. There are a lot of positions where players are just stepping up. A wide receiver, who'd have guessed that BC Johnson would be making the push that he is?
Yeah, I wouldn't have either. There's a little bit of competition at fullback, especially if you look at whether or not you're going to keep one or two and how that will affect other roster spots moving forward as well. Because, this third, we're kind of jumping forward a little bit here, but this third coming preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals, I think is going to be really important in terms of a lot of these position battles. We talk all the time about how you and I are actually fans of preseason football.
I am.
There's a lot of people that just kind of, whatever, who cares? But I really do think that it's interesting if you're into watching the position battles. And for the Vikings, like you just said, there's a lot of good groups out there. So this third preseason game, there's a lot of important players on this team that are going to be looking to make that final 53.
For casual fans who want to see the stars play, preseason is not what you're going to love. It doesn't count towards the playoffs. You're not going to see a lot of the star players. And if you do, it won't be for very long. This is the time to watch some of these young guys just really try to make their dreams of being in the NFL happen. And to watch that kind of play out on TV after they've done so much to already position themselves where they are during training camp, it's really a great story to see the ones that can rise to the occasion and just really put forward a great, great effort. And we've seen plays too in preseason where there's been questioning of some of the effort of some of the players, especially first team players who just are playing to stay healthy. And so far, knock on wood, the Vikings have been very healthy this preseason. They haven't suffered anything real major as far as setbacks on the field. So right now, the Vikings are in a pretty good spot, and I hope and I pray that continues. We have more people joining us here.
Scott
Schwab joining us in here.
What's the number one jersey?
We got Michael Cambria.
Profile. Michael Cambria, Skull.
The number one jersey.
Yeah, what is that? I see Teddy Bridgewater.
Is that 5, a Sloter?
Peterson at 28, and that looks like Kyle Sloter at number 1. They're in the center. I like that.
And we got to get well soon for my vehicle here, so I appreciate that. Hopefully, I'll be able to get her back soon.
Yeah. Hopefully, the wheels don't fall off the Vikings this season. Heyo!
Nice transition. Nicely done.
I tried. Do we have any quick hits, or do we just want to go right straight into the game review?
Well, the thing is there weren't a lot of things to discuss that weren't related to the preseason game. Since we went so close to the game last time, we're kind of doing it again this time, because Saturday is the preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals.
Cardinals, yep.
So what we're basically dealing with is followed from that first preseason game.
Okay.
That says Schwab. Oh, it's his custom jersey.
Oh, cool.
You gotta love custom jerseys.
Me too. I thought maybe it was just a really big Kyle Sloter fan.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
A lot of people want him as our QB too.
Speaking of that, did you see Mike Zimmer address that and said he's got a lot more things to work on if he wants to be a backup?
I did not. I must have missed that. Must have been in a press conference?
It was. He was asked about it, and Kyle Sloter didn't seem too impressed, but he says he's going to keep trying to earn a spot on the field. So watch him in these next couple games and see if he can make enough of an effort to surpass Sean Mannion on the depth chart. I don't think it's going to happen. Honestly, I think that they've already kind of made their decision there.
It seems like they already have. But, I mean, hey, there's still 2 more preseason games. Anything could happen.
Yeah, I'm not willing to say never, but I'm just saying he's going to have to really impress, and Mannion might have to disappoint quite a bit for something to happen there.
Right. You know, as Vikings fans, we tend to do this thing where we get really super enamored with like a second or third string quarterback on the team. And that's definitely what we're all doing with Kyle Sloter right now.
We might see some Taylor Heineke this year, though.
Really?
Cam Newton was in a walking boot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. So we'll see, but honestly, I just want Kirk Cousins to stay healthy and on the field and playing at a high level so that we don't have to have any conversation about QB2 or QB3 moving forward.
And I hope we never have to play that QB2. We got lucky last year because I was not confident last year, and this year my confidence isn't exactly sky high either. So
no.
We're gonna have to deal with it from there. But let's talk a little bit about this game because we don't really have quick hits here. Like I said, because it was basically followed from the game. There weren't any major injuries or anything like that for Minnesota, so things worked out all right. Minnesota came out, nice primetime game on TV. They ended up beating Seattle 25-19 in a much cleaner game than that first preseason effort. That first preseason game saw flags flying everywhere. This one, Minnesota was much cleaner and much more efficient, aside from one mistake that was pretty costly, but we'll talk about that in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's give away our game balls and donkeys. And my game ball is not going to be popular, so you might as well lead things off.
Well, I'm going to give my game ball to the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, Kevin Stefanski, who I think it was a good, it was about as well as you can call a preseason game where you're not game planning specifically for anyone going into it. And I think we're starting to see little shades, little glimmers of what the Vikings offense is going to look like. And there's a lot of things that I enjoyed from this game from him. I'm liking seeing some of the creativity where we've got two running backs and a fullback on the field. Like, I like some of those sets for the Vikings. And so I'm interested to see what this offense is going to look like when it's regular season, we're in full gear, and we're going forward with players like Dalvin Cook out there on the field. So, I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but I know it was a pretty even split for when it mattered on when we were running the ball and throwing the ball. They were doing a good job with that. They were doing a good job with some play action, some moving Kirk Cousins around. So I'm definitely loving the play calling from the Vikings.
The mix was 39 rushing attempts to 35 passing attempts.
Hey-o, there you go.
So that is pretty nice.
Yep.
In the chat, we have Michael Cambria saying that, hopefully Cook can stay healthy. And you just kind of spoke about that a little bit. We've got 8-22-4, giving out a big old goal. Scott Schwab here, looking forward to Bradbury for at least a decade, and I hope you're right. Absolutely hope you're right.
We all hope so.
Okay, so I've got a game ball. It's not going to be very popular, but it's my game ball, and I can choose what I want to do. And I'm giving it to Laquan Treadwell.
Oh, hey, he stepped up. He had himself a game.
We've got Ollie Adkins in here that's already talking about Treadwell having a good game. And the reason why I believe that Treadwell is a good choice to get my game ball is because this effort, 5 catches on 5 targets, led the team in receiving. He had 47 yards, or 4 for 4. Instead of 5 for 5. But he, what he did was he raised his stock at exactly the right time. With Minnesota placing him on the trading block, right now would be a great time for a team to try to come on in and grab him. And a needy team like the Giants would be able to say, hey, we can grab this guy now. Look at what he's doing. He's doing fairly well. We can grab him now. Or if something happens and the Vikings are forced to keep him on their roster and they can keep him throughout the season, they might be able to get a little bit higher of a compensatory pick if another team signs him. So basically what this is doing is this is raising his value. And that's exactly what the Vikings wanted to do. And I think that might have been part of the strategy going into this game, although it's hard to make that happen when you're going against an opposing team that isn't in on the plan. But still, for him to catch those targets and make things happen for the Vikings, that's got to be the outcome that Minnesota wanted to see.
No, you are correct, Adam. Mike Zimmer did say in his post-game press conference that they wanted to, I forget the exact phrasing that he used.
I don't know.
Or something.
Michael Cambria here is not counting on Treadwell this year.
Well, he's. But Zimmer did say that they did want to try to highlight him out there a little bit on the field.
Yeah, and I understand that completely, and it was the absolute right move. Hopefully they can move him, because I've been saying it on the Viking Age for a little while now. If holding on to Treadwell means losing or cutting a guy like BC Johnson to try to hide him away on the practice squad, I don't think it's worth gambling that for a compensatory pick. I don't think it is.
I don't think so either. And you know, if Treadwell, like, you need him to do good for the rest of the preseason, because if he doesn't, no one is going to trade for him. Like, people, I feel like more teams will be willing to gamble that he's just going to be cut, and maybe we'll get him either on the waiver wire. I don't remember how the waiver wire works, but I don't know if you pick him up on the waiver wire or if he just gets cut and then you can sign him as a free agent. Like, if he doesn't do anything, we're not going to get anything in return from him. If he balls out a little bit in the third and fourth game, hey, maybe you can at least get a late round draft pick out of the guy, which is definitely best case scenario for him.
Yeah, the best case scenario would be a trade, get a sixth or something like that back, be able to keep BC Johnson on the roster. I think that would be the best case scenario completely. And whether or not they'll be able to pull that off, I don't know. But
if Slick Rick could work his magic and get that 5th round pick back for Laquan Treadwell, bonus.
Now, I'm going to assume you and I both have the same donkey.
It's Holton Hill, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
It's 100%. We did not talk about this.
No.
It is 100%. It is 100% Holton Hill. I mean, you're looking at a player who's already suspended for how many games? 8 games. Okay, you know Mike Zimmer is not happy with him, and then you go out there and you make that boneheaded decision on the field to get yourself ejected. I don't care how talented you are, Zim does not want that bullshit on the team. Like, you are not doing yourself any favors for making this 53 roster here, kid.
Well, first he lowered his center of gravity to go to the player who was giving himself up, and that's already a no-no. Next, he lowered and aimed with the tip of his helmet, and that's a second no-no.
Yeah.
The third, I mean, he could have really seriously hurt that quarterback, Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, Paxton Lynch, yep.
And that hit alone, he got ejected for it.
Yes, he did.
And it was a very appropriate ejection. And yeah, Ollie Atkins does make a pretty good point here. The slide did come a little late, and I'll agree with that. But still, he had to do something to try to pull up from keeping that hit from happening, whether it was putting his arms out in front of him or whatever he could do to avoid that helmet-to-helmet contact. I haven't seen if he got a fine from that or not. I'm hoping that there isn't a suspension attached, but there should definitely be a fine at the very least.
If he gets another suspension, he's not going to have a season left to play for.
The weird thing is before he got his second suspension, he was talking about how he was learning from his lessons and taking his lumps and all this, and he just keeps doing these things that are setting him back. And a move like that isn't going to get him any more respect. It's not going to get him on the football field. And I understand football is a violent game. You want to make hard hits. You want to be that player who just makes an absolute name for yourself on that field and makes other opposing players fear you. I get it. But you don't do it through hits like that.
Right. And it sucks because Holton Hill has a lot of potential.
He does.
He could be an excellent player. And I hate seeing players with this much potential screw up early in their career. You really do. You just hate seeing that.
Absolutely. Scott Schwab here agrees with us that Lynch did not deserve that hit. We got some more agreement here. Ollie Atkins says it sucks because Hill seems like a cool dude, ultra talented. And yeah, he does.
Yep.
I agree with all of that. And I think that with the future really up in the air for Trey Waynes, because I don't see how they can bring him back, they're going to need this depth. Right now, we don't know what's going on with Mike Hughes. I hope Mike Hughes can come back and be ready to go, but so far, I don't believe he's seen anything major. I know he hasn't played in a preseason game, but I don't know how far along he is from actually taking the field, so I'm not sure.
I'm wondering if it's more of a Dalvin Cook situation with him, where they just maybe don't even want to push it for preseason, and they're like, we'll just get him out there week 1 regular season and hope he's ready to go.
ACL injury, I'd take as much time as he needs to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rush him back on the field for anything. I know they kind of want to ease him in, but they can do that during practices or workouts or whatever they got to do.
Yeah.
Just make sure that he comes back 100%. That should be the key. You don't want to push that too hard, too fast, or really gamble anything, especially with the secondary, the way the injuries happened last year and players had to step up. This is a team that needs as much depth as they can have.
Yeah, definitely. Let's
talk about quarterback play, and then we'll get to a question in the chat here about wide receivers. So during this game, we're not going to talk about the Seattle quarterbacks, although it was kind of cool to see Russell Wilson finally play in the preseason. But we'll talk about Minnesota's passing first. Kirk Cousins came out, and he still had a good game, even though he didn't have the excellent effort that he had in the first preseason game. He went 6 for 8 for 68 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. A solid game from Kirk Cousins for what he was when he was out there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really ask for a whole lot more than what he did. Sure, you want to see those drives in the end zone or at least with points. And Minnesota did have 3 points off a field goal after they got in position after some pretty cool Adam Thielen theatrics. But Kirk Cousins just continuing being a solid player in the preseason. After him came in Sean Mannion, and Sean Mannion was delivering some passes pretty well, 11 for 14 on the night. Threw a nice touchdown, but then he had a really interesting interception that kind of sailed on him a little bit under pressure, and those are the kind of plays that a veteran quarterback can't really make. If you're in that position, you got to throw the ball away and live to play another day. You can't throw a pick six.
That was a ponder pass if I'd ever seen one.
And I understand that he was trying to make a play happen. And yeah, the receiver stopped on the route and turned probably where he was supposed to. And the pressure was probably getting to him. And I understand that. I do. But yeah, there are those positions where you just got to throw that ball away.
Yeah.
And not try to force a play. We've seen this happen way too many times in the past. We saw it with Ponder. We've seen it with some of the other backup quarterbacks that we've had over the Vikings in the years. Players that just aren't really making the right defensive reads all the time. And it's a situation where you really hope that Kirk Cousins has learned from these kind of mistakes. He has.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you don't see him throwing a ton of really bad passes. A lot of his pick sixes are bad reads or players that ran wrong routes or timing routes that messed up. It's plays like that usually get to him. It's not pressure in his face, because we've seen Kirk Cousins be willing to stand in that pocket and just take massive hits to deliver the ball. He's pretty fearless when it comes to that. And I don't know if Sean Mannion has that in him. And now to the player that a lot of people are giving the game ball. That's Kyle Sloter. Sloter went 11 for 13 for 116 yards and a touchdown. Nice quarterback rating of 129.5. I don't think it's really up for debate that he outplayed Sean Mannion in this game by a pretty considerable margin. That's one reason why fans are still clamoring for him to take over that number 2 spot. But I'm still not buying into the fact that Sean Mannion, his experience factor is that much higher than Sloter's. Playing some garbage time games and filling in for a game or so, that's not as big of a deal as I think it should be. I mean, or as it's being made out to be.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I get a lot of that from NFL head coaches in general. It's like sometimes they seem to gravitate a little too much to a player like Sean Mannion, and they start throwing around terms like veteran quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but not in my opinion, not really. Like, what part of Sean Mannion makes him a veteran quarterback? Like, I don't get it.
He's looked at a clipboard a lot. I'm sure that he heads up a lot of great plays in practice, and he's in on team meetings, learning a lot. But when you're on that field, it's something completely different.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got to move into wide receivers, because we're going to skip running backs for now, because we have some pretty cool discussion going on in the chat about receivers. Scott Schwab says, I honestly don't think BB makes a wide receiver roster this year. We don't have a big guy on the squad after Treadwell, and BB's too little. We need a big guy.
That's a bold statement.
Now, Jordan Taylor's 6'5". So if they're looking for that big-bodied guy, they could keep Jordan Taylor. And I think that Jordan Taylor did a great job of separating himself from some of the competition during training camp and practices. And even he hasn't really shined too much in preseason games, but he could be the big-bodied receiver that they keep instead of Treadwell or some of the other guys.
Sure.
But here's why I think BB is a lock for the roster.
He's the holder.
Because he has been holding.
Uh-huh.
Now, we've also seen Corey Vedvik. It's weird calling him Corey because I don't pronounce that. I wouldn't never thought to pronounce that Corey.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that guide, that pronunciation guide that I found, I would have never guessed his name was pronounced Corey.
Now, he was holding on some of Dan Bailey's kicks. And so I think that having that backup holder, or if Minnesota does decide to go just absolute balls to the wall and have Vedvik be their punter and kicker and have BB be their holder. This Vikings roster, the way it shakes out is going to be so hard to predict because they could do so many ridiculous things.
I know. I kind of like it. This is a super difficult year to try to guess what's going to happen with the 53-man roster. I think Chad Beebe is going to make the roster. Versatility is definitely working in his favor. We already touched upon him. He plays special teams. They got him out there as the holder. He can play wide receiver. He can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. So I think that you look at a really versatile young player like that, I definitely think you want to hold on to him. But there's a lot of talent at the wide receiver position out there right now, so that's what we should be looking. One of the position battles to be looking for in these last two games for sure.
Yeah, BB and Zylstra both coming back from last year, both looked quite good. We will see Irv Smith Jr. out there a lot more with Kyle Rudolph, so I would not hesitate very much to call Irv Smith possibly a wide receiver 3 in an offense because he will be a great receiving option out there. Meanwhile, we've also got BC Johnson, who we've been talking about a little bit, and I'm sure we'll talk to a little bit more. Ollie Atkins says that Taylor hasn't been on the field much in the preseason, and Zylstra is just as big as Treadwell. Yeah, Treadwell's size, I don't think that his size accurately represents I don't think his height accurately represents his size. I don't think he plays as big as his body is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Because I don't think he's got the kind of crazy catch radius that like Kyle Rudolph has.
Mm-hmm.
Which I wish he did, because then he'd be much more usable in red zone situations or third down situations, fades. But I don't think you could really trust him in that situation because he doesn't have that kind of catch radius. But we'll have to see here. And then we've got what I like to call a bad idea here. No, Scott.
Oh, no Dez Bryant. No Dez.
We got an LOL and a no way I want Dez here. But I think the Vikings have enough young, talented receivers on their roster where they don't have to go out into free agency and grab Dez Bryant or Mike Wallace or someone else to bring them here to Minnesota. And I've got a feeling that Mike Wallace probably wouldn't want to come and do that anyway. So
yeah, no Mike Wallace part 2. No Chad Johnson. We're not pulling him out of retirement.
No, none of that. But let's talk about the receivers a little bit here.
Really quick.
Okay.
BC Johnson, I think, has been a pleasant surprise so far. I know he doesn't have anything on the stat line for this game, but he was only targeted one time. If you're not targeted, you can't catch the ball. So sometimes that's beside the point. But overall, BC Johnson was a guy that none of us were talking about in the off season. And I think he's came out and he's made a name and he's making a case for himself I'd love to see him on the roster because I don't know if you can slide him on the practice squad. Not with teams like
That's where I'm at too.
Not with teams like New York out there, not having anyone at receiver. He's going to get claimed.
So let's make our way down the top receivers for this game. Laquan Treadwell, like we said, 4 for 4 for 47. Mike Boone had one nice catch for 45 yards that he took, and Boone has been a really nice surprise, too, catching the ball out of the backfield. Adam Thielen, 3 catches for 35, and then he had that one play where he drew a nice long pass interference penalty. Laquan Treadwell did the same thing, too. He drew a nice pass interference penalty, too, that helped him move the chains and move the ball down the field. It's nice to see that players are able to stretch the field like that. Zylstra catching 5 balls, all 5 of his targets for 37 yards and a touchdown after being quiet in the team's first preseason game. That really helped his case, too, to make the roster. Irv Smith caught all 5 of his for 28 and a touchdown, and he kind of freaked me out a little bit. After he caught that touchdown, he didn't hold on to the ball very long before slinging it out of his hands and dancing. I know that I'm a bit old school on this football touchdown celebration stuff, but I'd hold on to that football in the end zone until I'm sure that ref is signaling touchdown.
Hey, I am confident that Zim is going to talk to him about that one. So hold on to that ball, kid. You can celebrate, but just make sure that you got like 3 steps in the end zone before you drop it.
So we got to talk a little bit about Kari Blasingame.
Yeah. Awesome last name.
I don't know if we can talk about him as being a genuine challenge for CJ Ham at this point. I know that he's been having some great preseason efforts, and CJ Ham's been playing well too, and Ham's got that experience. Do you think there's enough time for him to overtake Ham?
I don't think so. I personally don't. But we had talked about potentially them keeping 2 fullbacks as well. I don't know. I don't see in 2019. I don't see any team keeping 2 fullbacks. But I like Blasingame.
Ooh, that is a bold statement here from Scott Schwab. Delvin Cook a catch for over 800 plus yards.
Ooh boy,
that's a lot, man. That's a lot.
That's what I used to do in Madden when you would sign Reggie Bush.
Those wide receiver screens all over the place.
Yeah, you just convert him to a wide receiver and he'd be like a 90 overall. Yeah.
Yeah, keeping 2 fullbacks is something that I have never even thought of. And it's not enough teams use fullbacks, I don't think, where if you were to release him, I don't think there'd be a ton of people diving to get him.
Gruden will take him.
Oh, Gruden will take anybody.
Right.
Do you see that ESPN already has like an over 65% chance? I think it's 67% chance that Gruden's fired after this year.
Oh, no shit. No, I didn't see that.
That's crazy stuff there. Brandon Dillon had 1 catch for 15. Let's make our way down here. Anybody else have any really interesting catches? Not really. Jordan Taylor was only targeted that one time, didn't catch nothing. Tyler Conklin targeted twice, caught 1 and went backwards 8 yards. So that's not great.
No. Madison
not really what you're looking for.
Madison on 2 targets had 1 reception for 4 yards, so not much from him. But
Madison nearly had a pretty nice screen there too, but Cousins had a lot of pressure in his face and delivered the ball a little bit far. Otherwise, he had a lot of green in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there are opportunities there. The Vikings have said they want to get a lot more involved in the quick passing game, which involves slants and screens, which if you listen to us on a regular basis or join in the Discord, you'll hear me singing the praises of slants and screens. I do love them.
Yep.
So let's talk about the rushing attack a little bit here. Mike Boone led the way. He had 21 carries in this game.
Oh, boy.
For 66 yards. He only averaged 3.1 yards per carry, where Alexander Madison averaged 4.1 on his 10 carries. So the question of who's more effective was Madison, but they really wanted to see a lot from Boone in this game.
Makes me wonder a little bit if they were trying to highlight Boone for potential trade bait. I don't know.
Well, considering a handoff didn't go to Amir Abdullah in this game, which I thought was interesting too, because I see those two as still kind of being in a little bit of a position battle. But with Boone getting that bulk of carries, they might be trying to get some sort of focus of attention on him because I don't know. I liked what I saw from him last year. I like what I see from him this year. He's got a lot to offer. And if the Vikings are going to let him go, like I said, try to get something for him if you can. If you can't, I get it, and that's okay. But if they were trying to showcase him in this game, I think they did all right.
I like Mike Boone, but I don't love Mike Boone as a player. He does a lot of this. He likes to stutter step too much. I see him dancing too much in the hole, and I think that's where that 3.1 average comes from. Where I wish he would be more decisive. If he's
more of a downhill runner, yeah.
Yeah, and he wants to dance too much, and I don't think that fits his style. He needs to just like pick a hole and just slam into it and just go.
The reason why I don't think Boone takes the running back 3 spot is because they are going to want to keep Abdullah to be on the return team. And I think that's the only reason why. And I think that's why Boone's going to be the odd man out, unless they really feel like he can be a regular contributor, covering on special teams or being on the cover units and special teams. It's tough. The Vikings have some pretty good special teams guys, especially linebackers. Kentrell Brothers is amazing. But they need more special teams guys because we've seen that be a weakness so far in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
And if Boone can be one of those guys that comes in and helps on that, then maybe he can find a place on the team's roster. But right now, if I were to put some money down, I'd say he's on the outside looking in.
I personally don't think the third running back spot for the Vikings is that important because CJ Ham at the fullback position can get all those sneaky yards for the Vikings. You can hand it off to him. He can run it up the gut. You can occasionally sneak him out to the side and toss him a pass, and he'll get you those sneaky yards. So I think you got CJ Ham that can kind of fill in that role fairly nicely for the Vikings. I don't personally think the third running back is super important for Minnesota at this.
Well, we've got some more discussion going on here in the chat. This one now it's about Abdullah. Now Abdullah did have a fumble in that first preseason game, and it was not pretty because it was really a non-contact fumble where he was just kind of switching hands, and it's something that should have been avoided. Michael Cambria feels like he coughs it up too much. Scott Schwab says Peterson fumbled a lot too, but Abdullah's got some grit and athleticism. We saw some of his speed and shiftiness when he was able to get some pretty good yards when he was able to get in the opening. And Michael Cambria says Abdullah is not Peterson, and no, they're definitely not the same guy.
No one is Peterson.
I don't even think Peterson now is Peterson then.
No.
Oh, man. But yeah, the Vikings put forth some pretty good rushing here. CJ Ham carried the ball twice for 8 yards. Blasingame once for 1 yard. And he had that 1 yard touchdown, which was pretty cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've talked about receiving. Fumbles. Kirk Cousins had the one fumble, and it was recovered by CJ Ham, which that's another thing you got to like from Ham. He's a pretty alert player. He pays pretty good attention to what's going on.
Got good awareness on the field. Who the hell is Duke Thomas?
When he entered, I feel bad about this because I actually cover the Vikings, you know. When he came in the game, I was like, oh my God, I thought he was a cornerback.
I don't know what position Duke Thomas plays.
Well, he catches passes. That's what he does. Or I guess catches pass is the way to say it. Let's talk about the defense now because there were some nice performances here by the Vikings defense. And I hate to say it, but Holton Hill led the way with 4 tackles, all solo with 1 pass defense. And
so talented. Just keep it together, kid.
As I wrote in my MVP piece for the Viking Age, if Holton Hill hadn't made that absolute boneheaded hit, he might have been the defensive MVP from this game.
If it wasn't for that hit, he probably would have got a game ball.
Yeah. Yeah, you very well could have. But it's amazing how fast one thing can make you from a superhero into a goat, you know?
Right.
And not a good goat. I know a lot of people use goat to mean the greatest of all time. That's not what I mean. I mean the scapegoat. Or as my dad would say, the escape goat. Too many people say that. I just picture someone hopping on a goat and riding away.
That's my overall plan. When we're done recording, I'm going to hop on a goat and ride off into the sunset.
It's a great plan.
Yeah.
Up next on the list here, we've got Kentrell Brothers, 4 total tackles, 2 solo, one pass defense. Ron Curse had a really nice game. He had 3 solo tackles, and all of them were behind the line of scrimmage, so you got to love seeing that. Carter Schultz had a nice tackle for a loss and a hit on the quarterback. He was a good AAF guy who made his way over, and he's sneaky good. But I don't think he's going to get that last spot that is going to be taken because Bauer. I don't think Bauer is going to play at all this season. So
no, I don't expect so either.
Afidi Adenibo is making a great case for that 4th defensive end spot, and he's been part of the last cuts the last 2 years on the Vikings roster, and I think this is the year he finally makes it. I think this is going to be it. This game, sure, the stat book only shows him 2 total tackles, one of them solo, and half a sack. But he got to the quarterback 3 times and laid some pretty good hits. And if it weren't for some penalties or situations that were beyond his control, he'd have had a 2-3 sack day.
Right.
All right, so let's keep making our way down the list here. Otherwise, we had some passes defended by Devontae Downs. We had some more from, as I said, Holton Hill, Kentrell Brothers. Harrison Smith had a real nice bat away. He looked like he was in midseason form, how he was able to come over and just slap that ball right out of Lockett's hands. It's one of those plays where it kind of takes you out of the preseason. And you feel like you're watching a regular game, and it's like, yeah, and you just, you get pumped up because it feels like regular season football, and that play felt like regular season football to me.
I still think Harrison Smith is the best player on the team, not just defense.
Oh, without a doubt.
Just like offense, defense, he's the best player on this team for sure.
I will 100% agree with that. And Mike Zimmer knows how to use him in such great ways to get the best out of that defense and be able to disguise things and do really whatever they need to do. It's amazing. All right, so let's move on a little bit more here too, because
special teams is kind of fun to talk about right now.
It really is.
There's some interesting competition going on.
Yeah, because sure, at one point everyone thought everything was all set in stone, and then there goes the long snapper, and we're trying out a new holder, and our punter hurt his thumb, so he's got to sit out, and Vikings trade for a punter kicker, and now everything's just a big old mess.
Mm-hmm. But kind of in a good way, a little bit.
If there's one thing I love, it's competition.
And it seems to have brought the best out of Dan Bailey.
It does, because I want to say that as the veteran, his job is safe. But I've seen Vedvik on those kickoffs, and he's got a nice leg for kickoffs. His punts during this game were real good. His hold, solid. I haven't seen any real reason why Minnesota would trade for Vedvik and then let him go. So I've got to assume that he's going to be on the 53.
There is no way that Mike Zimmer held up a 5th-round draft pick and just lit it on fire to toss out the window. So, I mean, this kid is making the roster here.
But where and what? That's the question.
I don't know. I've started calling him Inspector Gadget because he's like, I don't quite know what his role is on the team, but I feel like he can do multiple things out there on special teams for us. So he's like our Inspector Gadget, where maybe he'll be punting, maybe he'll be kicking. We don't quite know yet, but he can do either or, and that's a positive.
Scott Schwab wants us to not forget Austin Cutting, so yep, he exists. He's there.
Yep.
He is a part of the squad, and they made their case there.
I will freely admit I don't know how to talk about long snappers. Boy, he sure long snapped that football.
Hey, if they can keep some good connections going, and the holder can keep those laces out and keep the ball straight, and the kicker can kick it good, and that's what I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm.
Kick it good. Punt returns. Olabisi Johnson needs to call a fair catch when he can.
Whoa, Jesus, he got blasted on that one.
He got absolutely speared to oblivion. And that is why fair catches exist, is so you don't take hits like that on special teams. He got absolutely rocked. He had to get up. His ribs had to be sore. They had to be.
My ribs.
Oh, they talk about the impact that special teams players can have when they got two players that are just moving at each other, making the same same kind of speed and just smashing. But when you got a guy that's paying attention to football, trying to catch it, and as soon as the ball touches his hands, he just gets absolutely gored in the abdomen. Wow.
Remember the first time around with the XFL when they had no fair catches for a little bit, and players were just getting decimated on the field, and so they had to quietly backtrack on that one and be like, okay, fair catches exist for a reason. That's why. Hey, he was trying to make a play. I mean, it's preseason.
I don't blame him. He's a young guy. He's trying to make a play and make a spot for himself on the roster. I get it. You don't want to give up in those kind of situations, but sometimes you just got to do it. You got to bite the bullet and say, okay, let's be smart here. And Mike Zimmer is a coach that appreciates that kind of smartness. And yeah, he wants to see those guys want to make plays too, but he doesn't want to do it at the expense of their health or, even though it's the preseason, for yardage or ball possession, You
look at health, and then you also look at the possibility that he could have got blasted, the ball could have popped out, and we could have turned it. That could have been a turnover. Yeah. So you got to play smarter than that.
Yeah, it's not bad enough to be the donkey, but it was not great. Kicking, Dan Bailey made one, and guess what? It was from 24 yards out, so not bad. Bailey and Vedvik each had an extra point, so they split those duties, which is pretty nice.
Yep.
Punting, Corey Vedvik had 3 punts, averaging 46.7 yards, with one of them inside the 20, with a long of 54, while Matt Weil was given a directional punt inside of the territory, 35 yards, and that was also inside the 20. So punting, pretty good from all aspects of everything here. We got to see Vedvik on kickoffs too, and he had some real nice kicks that were right about near the goal line, which is where you kind of want to see him happen. I'd be fine with just blasting it through the back of the end zone every time, but that's just me.
Me too. I prefer it through the back of the end zone. Just no chance for any kind of return with it at all.
Yeah.
You got to feel a little bit for Matt Weil. I know we were tough on him because he wasn't the greatest a holder, but he was also never asked to do that prior to coming to the Vikings. So he was expected to learn that skill on the fly when it mattered the most. So that was maybe not the most ideal of situations. But the way I see this shaking out is I think they keep Dan Bailey for the kicker. I think they keep Corey Vedvik as the punter. And then they have the possibility to kind of like, if needed, Vedvik could step in and kick.
I think they'll have Vedvik hold too, and they'll have BB as the backup holder. They'll have Vedvik as the backup kicker.
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to shake out for the Vikings. So Matt Weil is definitely on his way out, and I don't necessarily think it's because he did anything wrong. I think that they like the versatility of Vedvik.
Now, I did show you guys that were in the Discord chat the interesting fact that Matt Weil is currently the Vikings' all-time leader in yards per punt attempt.
Yeah.
So to have him leave after 1 year is pretty interesting.
It's an interesting decision. He'll get picked up immediately too.
Yeah, there's enough teams out there with punting problems where he'll find something, but I just we both know that Dan Bailey tried retiring once already.
Right.
And maybe he's been talking about hanging it up again. Who knows? Maybe he only wants to play for another season, and that'd be fine. That'd be absolutely fine if Vedvik comes in. He punts this year, and maybe next year he takes over as doing double duty. That's fine.
Yeah.
There's no problem with that. And spending a 5th rounder on that, I've got no problem with that whatsoever. Heck, I didn't have a problem with the Vikings spending a 5th rounder on Daniel Carlson, and he's still doing all right over there in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all we've got from this game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. Minnesota, of course, 2-0 on the preseason, which Mike Zimmer hates losing preseason games. He does, even though they don't count towards the regular season or the playoffs. He does not like losing any games. And Arizona is going to be an interesting one because we get to see that number 1 overall pick, Kyler Murray, in action. What are you expecting from him?
I don't know. I know he didn't look the greatest on his first outing. So we'll just see what happens. The Vikings always seem to have problems with this style of quarterbacks. Uh, Anytime we get someone who can scramble around and do things with their legs, they gouge us every single time. This is historically this has just been a problem for Minnesota. So we'll see if they're able to contain. I know it's preseason, but we'll see if they're able to contain him. It's going to be that third game, so we'll get at least a half from probably most of our starters, offensively and defensively, for the Vikings. Same as for Arizona, I would imagine too. This is our tune-up game, so I am looking forward to watching it. I believe, is this a Saturday game, Adam?
It's Saturday noon.
Okay.
So yeah, that's going to be one to watch. That's one reason why we wanted to make sure that we get a show done. We waited a little too long, and we turned out to a situation where I wanted to go today. The other two guys couldn't really get things done, so I decided to wait till Mr. West got done with work, and that's why he's a little sleepy right now.
Yes, I am very tired, but Vikings football is calling.
So that's pretty much all we have for this week. I do want to apologize for Mr. Smith not being here and Mr. Foley being unable to be here. Hopefully we can get all four of us together, because I'd love to try this out with the quad screen cam to have each of us in little corners, because that'd be fun. I hope it doesn't do like 4 slices, because that'd be a little small. But we do have a weird question in the chat that I don't know. To me, this isn't really even a question. But let's see what you think.
If Teddy was on the roster, would he make it as a backup? Of course.
Yeah, I don't see that as even a maybe.
Teddy is better than Kyle Sloter and Sean Mannion.
What about Jake Browning?
Yes, I think he's better than him too.
Oh, come on, Jake.
But yeah, Teddy. Of course, Teddy would be the backup.
All right, so let's get a couple reminders out here. The Survival League is up on Yahoo. If you aren't signed up, I got to put another link up there, because I haven't done it in a little while. And I did get a message on the Purple People Podcast Facebook page to put another link up for it, because people have not been signed up yet and missed it the first time I posted it up. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to try to remember, because I have a bad memory.
We will schedule some posts out. We'll get that flooded a bunch of times for you guys up there, because I think that's a really cool thing.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. I always have a great time playing it with you guys, and I like some of the back and forth that can happen, talking a little bit of smack. It's a great time. It really is.
I enjoy the weekly updates and seeing who's on the verge of being kicked out, and if they can turn it around and hold on for another week, and it's fun to watch the competition unfold. And at the end of it, you get some cool Vikings prizes. So
ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
All right, so I got to plug a couple things here before I go. First of all, the Viking Age. If you're a fan of the Minnesota Vikings, that's probably why you're here. If you are, head on over to the Viking Age, download the app, check out all the news on the Minnesota Vikings that we've got, because it helps me out. It helps me pay my bills, and I like being able to pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
If you like The Walking Dead, Undead Walking is a great place to get some information. We got a lot of cool opinions, ideas, thoughts, and everything. Fear the Walking Dead's going on right now, and I feel they put out the best episode of the season last week.
Nice.
And so far, I haven't really been digging the season as a whole, but that episode was quite good. It was a nice throwback to the Dawn of the Dead days. It had a nice Dawn of the Dead vibe to it that I really enjoyed. So
cool.
Every once in a while, you can get a nice thing like that going on.
Were they in a shopping mall?
They were.
Awesome.
They were. Scott Schwab says, I forget what it was. I was trying to beat you, Adam. Last year, I was too late. That's right. We got to get you in there. We got to get you in the Survival League. Gotta happen. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything you want to plug before we take off?
No, because I'm tired.
All right, so somehow we came in with no notes and just a bunch of football talk, and we ended up going almost an hour, and we have several people in here with us chatting at this time of night, so it's past midnight here Central, so we appreciate all you guys coming in and and hanging out and chatting with us because you guys really helped make it. We're so glad we were able to find this format to keep going live on YouTube to interact with you guys. Otherwise, this would be an absolute horrible, horrible thing. We've talked about it before. We didn't know if we were even going to keep going if this format didn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I absolutely love being able to highlight the comments across the bottom of it. I think that's the coolest thing that we can.
And there we got a good job. We did a good job.
That's cool.
Hit us up. We got our Facebook page going on. We're going to be posting some more stuff up over there. Like I said, we're going to be posting up the Survival League information. Mr. West, I think, is going to be scheduling some posts so we can have a little bit more fun there. Mm-hmm. Maybe some throwback flashback Friday.
Sure, that'll work.
I don't know. There's all those Man Crush Mondays and whatnot, aren't they? Things.
Sure.
Why not? we can do things on social media. Twitter, we don't check much, but you'd probably be better off messaging us on our personal accounts on Twitter.
Yeah.
If you're going to interact with us there. Otherwise, we have an Instagram that I don't think we check either, so that's not a
that
great
was
place
the Instagram is all Kyle Smith. I am not taking the blame for that one. The Discord server is always really fun for us on game days as well too. I was a little late getting into it this week because I was having cable problems. Because of course, why would I not have cable?
And
problems?
By the time you got there, chat was hopping.
Yeah, it was. But definitely join us in the Discord. It's a lot of fun to be able to chat live as the game is going on, especially come regular season.
Oh, for sure. And if this is what preseason has to offer, I can't wait to talk to all you guys during the regular season because this should be a fun one.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. From everybody here at the Purple People Podcast, I want to thank you all again for hopping in here and stay classy, Minnesota.